Hey everybody, Functional Programming Tutor here, and today we're going to talk about conditionals. If statements, elif, else, that sort of thing. This is how you make a program make decisions. Really, to have a true program, you kind of need two things. You need some sort of input to the program, and the program needs to make decisions, and then give you that output, whatever that output might be. In our case, it's just some simple print statements. In an effort to make these videos under, my goal originally was under 10 minutes. I don't really know if that's actually feasible anymore, but under 15. I wrote up an entire reference document and I'll probably copy and paste it over. Okay, so let's get into it. First, we have just a variable x, the assignment operator, assigned to 5. And then the same thing here, the variable y, with the assignment operator, assigned a value of 10. So here we have some conditional statements. We have if x is less than y, then you're going to print this. Now, if you remember from my first video, I talked about syntax and how you need indentions, either space or tab, whichever you prefer. I prefer tabs. Also, if you have a statement, so if or a while or something along those lines, you have to end it with a colon. So here we have if x is less than y, then it will print this. Elif, which stands for else, if elif x is greater than y, it'll print this. Otherwise, it's just going to say that they're equal. To sort of run through this real quick, this program is going to, when it runs, it's going to look at x, compare it to y, and if the first statement is true, it will run this. If the first statement is not true, it ignores this in its entirety, and it moves on to the next thing. It says, okay, well, is x greater than y? And if that's true, then it'll print this. If it's not true, then it moves to else. It's like, okay, well, neither of these are true. So then what's my next statement? Everything else is included right here. Any other possibility other than greater than or less than is right here. And in our case, that really is every other possibility. There's the only other possibility with whole numbers is that it's true. Um, you can have other possibilities, of course, if you're using other things. But so if we run this and see what happens, currently it says x is less than y. Great. We can change x to be 10. And now it's going to run all the way to our else statement because they're equal. Okay. And if we wanted to check to see if our elif statement works, we can do this. Okay. So that's the basics. Now let's talk about getting input from the user. So here we have num1 and num2. This is the input function, which you can also write as just that. Okay. If you write it as just this, well, let me show you what this does actually first. So if you write it the way that I have it, it's going to accept input and give you a message. So it's saying type a number. All right, so we're going to type 5 and type another number. Okay. And then it just ends. We don't have it doing anything else. If you do it this way, you could realistically do like, and then change this to just be that. Okay. And now it says type number, but it's coming in down here. Okay. So really the reason that we do input the way I have here, unless you're running or trying to build a program that has some other requirement. In this case, this is just easier. It's all in one line instead of a couple of lines, a little bit more efficient. Okay. All right, well, now let's see if we can compare these things. We can. If num1 equals num2, then it's going to print out these numbers are equal. And otherwise, it's going to say they're not equal. Now, the reason that we can't do greater than or less than in this case is because accepting input like this, it forces the input to be a string. And we'll get into casting in a minute. But for now, we can do 5 and 5. These numbers are equal. Great, so we know that works. And we can run it again. 5 and 3. These numbers are not equal. Perfect. So as I said, these two numbers right here, these two variables, are actually assigned a string. They're not an integer number. You can tell the typing of a variable in a couple of different ways. Either you just kind of understand that this is the way that it is, or you can actually come in here and print the type. So these two different functions are the print function that we've already learned and the type function. Okay. If you put them together like this and you put a variable inside, it will print the type of the number. Okay. Well, of the variable, not the number. Excuse me. So it's going to ask us for numbers, and it tells us that they're of class string. Okay. So that's an option you have. Now, the reason that this is important is because you can't do math, and you can't really compare them. You can compare them with equals and not equals, but you can't compare greater than or equal or less than or equal. It's not going to use the greater than or less than portion of those comparisons. Okay. And I'll show you what it does if you try to add them. So let's just add num3 here. Oops, num3. And this is just going to be num1 plus num2. And then we're just going to print num3. Okay. So if I type in 5 and 5 here, and if we're adding them, you would assume that it's going to tell you 10, right? Because 5 plus 5 is 10. However, what it actually does is just put them together. So 5 and 5 is 55, which is not doing math. Okay. And I'm just going to get rid of all of this. The type and print functions I will put in the notes and descriptions if you need them for reference. You can cast these strings into integers. So for the sake of the example, we're going to enter some more numbers. Or we're going to ask for more input from the user. Okay. Just like this. So what this is doing is it's asking for an integer input, and then the message displays to enter a number. All right. So again, what these look like by themselves is int input. But the way you structure it, which is more important, is like that. Okay. So you want the whole thing, you want the entire input to be an integer. And this is called casting. Now we have 4 and 5, which are going to be integers, and they'll be added together to equal 6. So, and we'll use the same example from before. I'll just do 5s again. 5 and 5, and now it gives us the desired result of 10. Okay. And that's good, but what if you want to display a message that takes the number plus the number equals the number? Okay, so you want to tell the user that num4 plus num5 equals num6. You don't want to say in your string 5 plus 5 equals num6 or 5 plus 5 equals 10 because we're accepting user input and these numbers can be anything, right? So what we're going to do is cast those back as strings, just like that, okay? So now this, if you remember the addition operator, this is also how you concatenate inside if you want to take strings and add them together. All you're doing is smushing them together, okay? So if you notice I have spaces here, because the interpreter doesn't see the spaces in between everything, it just deletes them, so I have to put spaces in strings. So now this is going to say the string value of whatever num4 is concatenated with the plus sign and two spaces, concatenated with the string value of whatever num5 is, concatenated with some spaces, an equal sign, and then concatenated with num6. Okay, so this is going to say num4 plus num5 equals num6. So there you have 5 plus 5 equals 10. Now just to show you, because I've been using 5 the entire time, let's do like, I don't know, 2345 and 5678. So it takes the values, adds them together, because right here they're integers. It takes the values and adds them together and stores them in num6. And then here I'm just telling the interpreter, hey, take that value and make it a string so that way I can write it out the way that I want to. Right? So that's really it for this lesson. I do have a small little project or problem to work through for you guys, and this one is going to be the basically the modulus thing that I said I was going to do in the last video and ended up not doing because it required an if-else statement. So what we're going to do is we're going to accept user input and store it in a variable. So we're just going to call that variable usernum. And as an integer, we want the input. And we're just going to say enter a number. And give a little space. So that way in the terminal, it's easy to read. Clarity. Okay. Now we're going to say if user num mod2 equals 0. I probably should have prefaced this by saying this problem is accepting user input and determining whether or not the number is even. Okay, so we're going to let the program decide whether or not the number we have entered is an even number or an odd number. All right, I'll have to get better about that in the future. I just went full steam ahead. So if user num mod2, no, the modulus operator, if you remember, does a division operation and only returns the remainder. So even numbers are all divisible by 2. So if divisible evenly by 2. So if the modulus, so if the user number modulus 2 equals 0, i.e. the modulus operator returns 0, then we know it's an even number because there's no remainder, right? So we just print something along the lines of that is an even number. Yay. Okay. Well, what do we do if it returns 1? Because if you mod to something, then the only other option is that it returns 1, right? So 7 divided by 2, for example, has a remainder of 1. 39 divided by 2, for example, has a remainder of 1. They all do. So we're just going to do, since they all have the exact same remainder, we don't need to do any elif. We can just do else. and print that is an odd number. Yay! Right? So when we run this, all right, so now we're entering a number for our little project here. Let's just do an easy one out of the gate. 8 is an even number. Perfect. 21489. That's an odd number. Yay. Okay, that's it for this video. If you like it, please leave a like, subscribe if you want more, and leave a comment if you have any questions. As always, the code will be posted in the description, and I put it in the description last time, but I'll just say it here in this video. If you copy and paste over, the greater than and less than symbols will not work in your IDE. You'll have to retype them, but that's it. Thanks for watching.